Hello, this is Ashee from Crafting with Ashee, and welcome to this um, video today. Today I'm going to be creating an art journal page, and I've got some of our Fluid 100 watercolor paper here on my craft mat, and I've just wet it using some water in a spritzer, and now I'm just going to use my water blenders to put down some ink and to paint on my Fluid 100 watercolor paper. Now I'm just going to put on a wash here, and this is Balmy Blue, and all I did was transfer some ink to the lid, and to do that I just press down on the lid so it makes contact with the ink pad, and then I've just picked this up using my water painter. You can't see it very clearly on the camera. Now I didn't have any idea where I was going with this project when I did it. This is real time with me, just well, this is fast forwarded, but I didn't plan this project before I started it. This is me just working, and you're going to see my thought process as I go along. So you can see here I'm just adding more of this lovely balmy blue, and the great thing about watercolour, it's very forgiving, and you just build up the layers, add as much colour as you want. It's much easier to add colour than it is to take it away, so it's better to build up the layers of colour. And you can see here slowly I'm doing that. It's not, as I said, so easily visible on the camera because the light just takes some of that out. So I've just put on a very light wash there, so now I'm going to go with a deeper colour so I can just have some variation of colour in places. And this one is just a Zero Afternoon, and I'm just adding a little bit of water to the ink so that I can move it about, and you should be able to see this colour more easily on the camera. There you go. I don't mind about the brush strokes being there, it's just going to give some interest in the background. This is just an art journal page, so this is just a chance for me to play, and I love playing with my inks, I love painting, so this is just a chance to play. Now I haven't done an art journal page in ages. There are a few others I've done, and I will list them at the end of this video, the playlist of my art journal pages, but I do enjoy doing them. Sometimes I use watercolouring as we're doing here, sometimes I'll just use my ink pads, I'll blend, the ink with my brushes. Sometimes I use acrylic ink. It really is just whatever takes my fancy. You can see here I'm just adding some more. I'm getting in those brush strokes just to give, I know it looks a bit funny here, but it will all dry and it will all look great at the end. Remember as well that your ink will always dry lighter than it appears initially. Now I'm just cleaning my brush here by pushing the water through it, and here we go, and getting it off. It might look as if it's still a bit blue, but as long as when you paint with it it's clear, then you know your brush is clean. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to dry, and now we're going to move on to the next step. And that step is drying our ink pad. So we're going to do that quickly now with our heat tool. Sorry, the camera didn't take well to the heat tool and just did a bit of a funny thing there. Okay, all should be dried up now. And now we're just going to move on to do some stamping. And I'm going to use this lovely stamp set here called Beautiful Butterflies. And I'm going to use a stamping tool because I'm going to stamp on Fluid 100 ink watercolor paper, and because it has a texture, and all watercolor paper will have some texture to it, it's what allows the water to flow and move so beautifully, but it also means it's a bit more difficult to stamp. So I'm going to stamp using permanent ink. You can use StazOn, will work perfectly here, but you do need to use a stamping tool or something because you won't get, as you can see, a perfect impression the first time. So you need to stamp it a few times to get that really perfect impression, and you do need to give it quite a bit of a push down with your hands. So you can see me doing this here, and I'm going to have to stamp it a few times to really get that impression that I want. You can see me here going in from the back, and here is it by magic with video editing. You can see I've done it. Now I just let that ink dry, And now we're going to watercolour and paint our butterflies. And I'm going to use my watercolour painters again. I'm going to use a different tip though. Remember, the watercolour painters have 3 different tips. If the watercolour painters are no longer available in the online shop, just use any watercolour painter or any just a normal watercolour paintbrush will do perfectly, and a little tub of water. It's what I use quite often. It's just a normal paintbrush, because to be honest, with a paintbrush and a tub of water you get really good control of your water, which is what you're doing when you're watercolour painting. It's all about controlling your water. So here I'm just putting down an initial base colour, and this colour here is let me have a look, Daffodil Delight. So I'm just putting this down here, and I'm just going in. You can't really see so very well again, but it's a very light wash of the Daffodil Delight. I've had a little few highlights for some variation, but we are going to go in and do a lot more, and you'll see anything that looks a bit weird now won't look weird at the end. It's all going to get blended out and look nicely, a lovely seamless blend of watercolour. So I'm going to do that for my main butterfly as well as my little butterflies, and it's the same thing as before. I just put some ink into the lid of my ink pad, and I'm picking this up using my watercolour brush. Okay, so now we're going to move on to what's called my middle colour. You can see here me transferring the ink and giving it a really good push down. Sorry, the camera shook a bit there. And then this one here is crushed curry. Now I'm going to go in from the centre of my butterfly, and then I'm going to blend it out so it's darker in the centre and lighter towards the edge of the wings. Okay, so you can see here I'm just picking it up and going along, and I find watercolouring so therapeutic. It's just, you could spend all day just sitting here, or I could at least, watercolouring. I love the way the colours blend, the way they move with the water. It's just really, really therapeutic and lots of fun. It's great if you're stressed or worried or feeling really uptight. Doing something like colouring, or especially I find painting, watercolour painting, is incredibly therapeutic, because you just can't rush it. You can't go at a speed. You just got to go at the speed that the project dictates to you. So, you've got to build up the colours slowly. You've got to move them with the water, wait for the water to dry, and you just can't force it. So it's a great way to slow down, take your time, and by the time you finish with that, you do feel incredibly relaxed, or at least I do. Anyway, so there we've gone in with our crushed curry. Now we're going to add our deep colour, and this is going to be pumpkin pie. Now this is a combination I use a lot: Daffodil Delight, crushed curry and pumpkin pie. Sometimes I add poppy parade to it if I want to add a really red tone to whatever I'm doing, but otherwise I stick to this combination, and it's one that really works for me. Do you have any go-to colour combinations that you always use, or that are your favourites? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know. It's always good to share ideas and inspiration. So there we go. I'm just adding the colour here, blending it out, taking my time. And as I said, you'll see on the still photos at the end that this really is beautifully blended out. Here it does look a little blotchy, and some areas look almost white. It's just the camera that does this, unfortunately. But as I said, on the still shots at the end, you will see how nice it really looks. Okay, so this, as I said, was a sketch butterfly, so I'm going to let that dry. And it's by the magic of video editing, they're dried and they've been cut out using the matching dies. Now I want to add a little bit of stenciling to my background here, and I'm going to use the Link Together stencils. Now I'm very sad to say these stencils are on the last chance list, so these are retiring now. When they run out, they're retired. It was very sad to see this, but I really liked these stencils. I felt they were really versatile, but no problem, they're staying in my stash, they're not going anywhere. It just means that they won't be current product that I can sell, but they're certainly going to be a product that I will continue to use because I love stencils. They just add some interest in the background where there's no other interest. So now we've done some stenciling, time to do a little bit of stamping. I'm going to use here a stamp set called Elements of Text. Now this is an absolute favourite of mine. It is an online exclusive. When it initially came out, can you believe it, I missed it. And then my upline started to use it and I was like, how could I have missed that? It is a gorgeous text stamp set. It is great for art journaling. It is one of those lovely essential art journaling type of stamp sets. If you are new into art journaling, then I would definitely recommend you get a set like this. It is definitely a great art journaling stamp set and Elements of Text. So do check that out. So we've added a little bit of stamping here. And now this also stamp set also has like these little splatters. And I don't know if you know, but I like splatters. They just add a little bit of vibrancy to the background, a little bit of movement, so everything just looks a bit more free instead of just looking flat. Okay, right, so there we go. We've created our background. And now we're ready to start to put together our art journal page. Okay, so let's try and put our focal images on here and see which way we want them to go. Now you can see here I've got a blue background and then I've put together my butterflies are yellow, orange, and I chose these colours because they are opposite sides of the colour wheel and therefore they really do pop against each other. Now you can see here I'm just using a marker. This is a fine liner. You could use a Stampin' Right marker as well. And I'm just using this to just deepen the body of the butterfly inside. Now I'm going to stick this down. I'm not going to really have any dimension on this art journal page, and that's because this art journal page is going to go into my art journal, which is a flat book, so I really don't want to have a lot of dimension because otherwise it'll mean very difficult then when I'm doing the next page to be able to work on a flat surface. So there we go, there's our butterfly and the two little baby butterflies. Okay, and now I'm going to use my fine liner again here. You can see on my butterfly, on my main butterfly, just to add some extra detail. And now I'm going to use this to create a border around my art journal page. And each of these pens is a different nib width. So I was just going for one that I liked the best, and you can see here I'm just going for a very squiggly swoggly line around my page, and this is just to give it a bit of a frame so it doesn't look so flat. And then I'm going to add a second wibbly wobbly line as well, just to emphasize that border. And no rhyme or reason, I'm just going around and doodling. And the doodling part of my art journaling is one of my favourite bits. I just love doing the doodles. And here I'm adding some movement lines underneath my butterflies. So now we're going to move on to the next step. And I'm going to be using a white pen here. And this is a white paint pen I think I've used here, and I'm just using it to add a few different highlights to my butterflies and to add a little bit of a white highlights to my borderline. You could use a white gel pen, but I found that a white paint pen just worked really well. And then, as I said, I have just a simple sketchbook that I got, and then I glue my art journal pages into the sketchbook so that then I have a lovely book of all my art journal pages. And at some point when I've done a few more, I'll show you a flip through of my art journal. There we go. And do you like mixed media artwork? Do you do a lot of mixed media artwork? What's your favourite type of mixed media? Do you like to do art journal pages? Do you like to do canvases? Do you like to make 3D items? What's your favourite thing to do? Let me know in the comments below. Okay. So now I'm going to add my sentiment, and I'm going to use the sentiment from the same stamp set as the butterflies. And I'm just trying to decide where I want this to go. Find a good sized block, and then I'm just going to use my grid paper to line up my stamp set, my stamps, so it's even. And then I'm going to ink this up again in permanent black ink, so you can use stays on here. And I'm just going to go for it and hope for the best. Down, hold, and up here. Time to celebrate. And I think that's perfect quote with all of these lovely butterflies. So I should say, if you're enjoying this video, I'd be grateful if you could give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. If you want any more information about the project, the supply list and that sort of thing, it'll all be on the blog post, and you can find the link to that in the description box below. So here I'm just going to go in with my fine liner, and anywhere on the sentiment I felt that needed a little bit of darkening up, I'm just going to trace around it with my fine liner. So you need a very fine pen to do this, the finest you can, I would say. There we go, that just darkens it up a bit. Doesn't that make a big difference? I think it does, or I hope it does. So there you go, there's my lovely art journal page today. So thank you for dropping by, and until next time, enjoy being creative. Bye.